What's on, guys? Commander here. Welcome to a new video talking about Halo Infinite's campaign, and this is going to be my full spoiler review. So there's a spoiler warning in this video for Halo Infinite's campaign from start to finish. So this video is going to be split into different sections. So story, gameplay including weapons, sandbox and mechanics, and then open world. I'm going to add a little few bits and bobs in there as we go, but that's the main basis of what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about what I liked and what I didn't like for each of the different sections. So first of all, story. Overall, I really enjoyed Halo Infinite's story. It's something brand new yet similar to what we've had before. You've heard me say before that Bungie's Halo games, with the exception of Halo Reach and ODST, have more or less been the same. Survive the Covenant attack, protect an area from the Covenant advance, protect the Marines, discover a Halo installation / use of the installation, and then race against time to prevent the Covenant from activating it, killing all life in range of the rings, then have the third show up halfway through to cause some interference. However, the good parts of those games, though, were so good that you could look past the repetitive story. Now, while Halo Infinite's story still follows that basis because the Banished want to activate the ring, and it's a race against time to stop them, it's done in a way that makes it different because you start off with the ring being destroyed and such it cannot be activated. And even though it's still a race against time to stop the ring from being repaired, the stakes are not so high and it actually is a little more refreshing than you may think. On top of this, we also have the addition of the Harbinger, and it's somebody who we don't really know much about, which I have to admit did disappoint me a little. However, I think her story will be explored more in Halo Campaign DLC. However, with the Harbinger wanting to bring back the Endless, and to do this she needs the ring to be activated, it is the same race against time scenario to stop her, but for a different reason, which again is more refreshing than you might think. There are also side stories that happen throughout the game, as well as what happened to Cortana, which I'll get to that later, and what happened to UNSC after the Banished attacked the Infinity. It's pretty much left to audio logs apart from some expedition from Escharum, and I think it's done really effectively. It made me think multiple times throughout the campaign what could have happened to the Infinity and its crew, and then piecing together parts from the audio logs to create my own theories of what happened, while keeping me invested in the main storyline. Now, while I wish we could have been given more presence for those side stories in the campaign, I understand why they 343 decided not to do that, because I think we would have gotten a little cluttered storylines with the Banished, the Harbinger, Cortana and the UNSC stories going all at once at one time. But it doesn't break down the same story type we're used to in Bungie's Halo games. Much like Bungie's games, it gives so much extra that you really don't notice it. Apparently this game was supposed to be much bigger than it actually was, and they cut so much from the main story because of development problems. Now, if they need to cut it, that's fine, but I think you can tell, even without actually knowing that nothing's actually been confirmed yet. Again, I'll get onto this properly later, but there's been rumours going around that large parts of this game have been cut, and what annoys me about this part of this game is that you can actually notice that this game has probably been cut, because it's so, I don't quite know how to put it into words. It's good, but it's not mind-blowing. Is that kind of what I'm trying to say? I don't really know, because like I said, I can get over the same story about wanting to activate the Halo rings, but there's certain parts of the story, again, some of it I'll get to a bit later, that just make me think, could they not have explained this a little bit more? You know, like the whole thing about the disappearance of the Infinity, like, what? Like, we just see one scene at the start of the game, which granted is insane. I love that cutscene so much, it is amazing, but is that all we're going to get? We don't really know. Like, all the other things, the audio logs really, like, let's say Spartan audio logs, they only really go over what happened after they jettisoned from Infinity in an escape pod and landed on Zeta Halo. So like the fall of Reverie, which I assume is their last point of defense before they had to actually go into hiding, because that means all is lost, sort of thing. And then the Spartans gathering together with some Marines to go and try and take on Escharum and things like that. You know, but that's nothing to do with actually what happened to Infinity. We get no actual major audio logs from Lasky, so I don't even know if he survived. Or Palmer, or Roland. Like, what happened to Roland? You know, and again, I'll get onto this a bit later on, but the audio logs just sort of push, it feels like they're pushing the main parts we actually care about the story and what's been built up over the past of 343's Halo games just off to the side and just explain it away with exposition. But anyway, so we also get formatted data from inbuilt structures in the ring, and this is part of the exploration, like audio logs kind of thing, which not only you do get information the weapon reads out for you, but you also get audio logs read by Despondent Pyre. I like these in particular because it adds a certain mysterious nature to Zeta Halo, as if what you're playing is just a snowflake in the bigger, wider environment of the whole Halo ring. And considering Zeta Halo is the only installation that remains from the original Halo array, that means that this is potentially more mystery for this game and more to discover than I originally thought, and probably many others originally thought as well. However, there are some things I didn't like about this campaign, one of which, and most of these are just like little nitpicks, but one thing I will get onto in a second is quite big. One of which, though, to start off with, I've already mentioned, which is the Harbinger. Now, for a character that played a part in the main campaign, there wasn't really much done with her character. However, that being said, I like that I think there's going to be campaign DLC at some point in the future. Because just before Halo Infinite's campaign released, 343 put an application in for a trademark for a name called Halo the Endless. So I think that's campaign DLC, which if that has got any kind of link to the Harbinger and her past, present or future, I'm fully aware, I'll fully take that and this complaint will no longer apply. But for the time being, because we don't know that for certain, I will keep it here. Smaller thing is the Weapon and Echo 216's names. For two main characters that have some decent but not great character development in this game, 343 failed to give them names throughout this game. Now, I can understand from the Weapon from a story perspective because she's only been active for 7 months before she chooses a name at the end of this game. But Cortana, from what we're led to believe, chooses her name right away. However, the pilot, I don't know why 343 just didn't tell us his name halfway through the game, or at least sometime before the end. Now, you could argue that we didn't know Echo 419, Foehammer from Halo CE, but she was just a side character with no actual development, and I don't really care what her name is, and Bungie at the time didn't make us think that she was important. However, 343 put so much emphasis on the importance of this pilot, Echo 216, well, failed to give his main form of identity, that being a name, until right at the end of the game. I think personally, a ideal opportunity to tell us what his name is was halfway through the game after we take out the anti-air batteries, with him ranting at the chief about, you know, I'm no pilot, I'm just a civilian called Fernando Esparza. That's when we should have known his name, right slap bang in the middle, not right at the start because it probably would have felt a little bit too rushed, but not leave us right to the end for us to finally figure out what his name is. Tell us right in the middle in a point of really like emotional exposition and really emotional like character development. I think that would work so much better. So the next thing we'll talk about, and this is the big thing, is Cortana's story. Now, personally, I really wasn't satisfied with what they did with Cortana. Actually, no, I really didn't like what 343 did with Cortana in this game. I've done videos speculated about Halo Infinite, and one of the things that I said multiple times was that I feared that they were going to push Cortana's story to the sidelines. Well, that's pretty much what they did in this game. Beyond a couple of scenes dotted around throughout the game, we didn't see much about Cortana until the final couple missions, and even when we did, the completion of her story was her seeing the error of her ways and helping Chief, which just annoyed me. For a character that players have got to know throughout 4 games, you would have thought 343 would have put some more effort into doing more with her character. Now, I didn't like that Cortana came back in Halo 5, however, she did, and I thought, well, if this is what we're going to do, then, you know, we may as well just get on with it. But it set her up to be a legitimate threat in this game, because that's how they set it up in Halo 5. But no, all the stuff with Cortana, the Warden, the Prometheans, the Guardians, everything was just explained away with exposition. And even so, even then, the Warden, the Guardians, the Prometheans weren't even, well, we saw the Guardians a little bit, but the Warden, the Prometheans, and for the most part the Guardians, didn't even have any exposition explaining them. What was 343 doing with this game in regards to Cortana? It's just... I don't know. You know, I understand there's a lot of hate for Halo 5. Some I agree with and some less. But that is no excuse to just abandon what you've built on and what could be a really good game that tested Chief throughout this game, forcing him to kill his former friend and companion. And I so wish we could have seen that instead of just it being explained in exposition. And it also has insult to injury when Cortana learns the error of her ways and helps Chief by destroying the ring and stopping the Harbinger, which just destroys the plot they set up in Halo 5. Not only did 343 make Cortana's sacrifice in Halo 4 meaningless by bringing her back, but they also made her story in Halo 5 meaningless because the next game she turns back to Chief's side. I made the comparison between Cortana and Darth Vader in my campaign Let's Play right at the end. Darth Vader goes through the same redemption situation, but the difference is Darth Vader turns on the Emperor when he sees his son suffering, and that's after we get 3 films that's at least of him being evil and doing evil things and things to make us hate him as a character. However, with Cortana, while we see her being evil, it's only shown in one game, and she's redeemed by the end of the same game. I don't know about you, but that just annoys the hell out of me. So, now on to gameplay. I've said this before and I will say it again. This game's gameplay is probably one of the best, if not the best, I've seen in any Halo game thus far. Multiplayer showcased it off in a really good light and campaign just took it to the next level. All the weapons had their specific uses and you really had to think when picking up a weapon whether it's going to serve you well in the upcoming battle. And while there being many more hostile AI on the battlefield, it's more important than ever to make sure you're choosing the right weapon. And it's crucial that you choose wisely. Fusion cores are also the best new gameplay feature in Infinite. Not only because of the way they're organised around banished camps and bases, means you can use them to quite satisfyingly make some chain reactions and kill like a load of banished forces before you even go in yourself. But they're really good for taking down things like hunters and things like that. And I do just want to say, whoever was a 343 who suggested the ability to pick up and throw fusion cores, you, my friend, are a legend. This feature not only makes boss fights easier, but because of how far you can throw them, you can stand above a base, collide a fusion coil with multiple in the base, and you can start a huge chain reaction and kill hostiles without even starting the engagement. This is what I want to see in Halo. Brand new ideas that we haven't seen in many games, if ever, making an appearance and making them fun to use and increasing that sandbox so much more than what we've seen in any Halo game thus far. The AI in this game are really good as well. The Marines are smart enough to change their weapon if they see a better one, and so if you save a Marine and he's holding a pistol, he'll pick up a skewer or a rocket if he sees one lying on the battlefield, which I think is a really good mechanic and one that can change the tide of the battle you partake in. Hostile AI are also really good as well in many different variants with different ranges of health, shield health and what have you, as well as weapons that make you think tactically about how you should approach them instead of going in all guns blazing like you could in Halo 3. An added mechanic is that of brutes is pretty much any weapon they can get their hands on, whether it be a spiker, bulldog or sentinel beam, they will use, which is really good and it makes for some really interesting and sometimes challenging encounters. Now, some small little complaints I have with the gameplay is that I wish the sandbox, the weapon sandbox specifically, would be a little bigger. While at the moment all of the weapons have unique purposes, I kind of miss the weapons that don't really have much use, but are interesting to use nonetheless. It all wants more variety to the AI, rather than having them use the same weapons all the time. It kind of sucks that the Marines also can't drive vehicles. I always liked going into battle with me in a tank and Marines following side by side in a Warthog and a Mongoose, and it's something that's really missed in this game. Now, while I did enjoy equipment in this game, it caused some fun in the open world that I've never been able to in any Halo game before. However, I only really found myself using the grapple for the majority of the game. I did see some people saying that you need to use all your abilities for the legendary version of the game. Now, as of writing this part of the script, I've just finished my legendary playthrough, and I've really only used the grapple for the majority of the game, apart from some boss fights like Bassus, Bassus, that I need to change the thruster, but beyond that I only really use the grapple hook. Now, I don't know whether it's because the other abilities are bad per se, because I don't think they are, but more because the grapple is so good and diverse, it fits pretty much every single situation. Now, one other small complaint I had about this game and its gameplay is, and it kind of fits the story as well as gameplay, but I think it fits both, and that's boss fights. Now, to me, the first couple boss fights were really, really good because you were getting used to the brand new feature in Halo, and it's done in a way that's not ever been done in a Halo game before, and it's some of them are really actually quite entertaining to start off with. However, looking back at all the bosses, excluding Jago Adamni, they're pretty much more of the same, and it got a bit boring after a while. Even Escharum, we see him all throughout the campaign acting big and tough and says he waits this big battle with Master Chief. But his boss fight in this game was just like all the other boss fights that I've done. The Brute Chieftain that I fought at the end with the Harbinger yielded more of a challenge than Escharum ever did. Now, if they'd given Escharum a berserking feature like the Chieftain had with the Harbinger fight, that would have led to an actual challenge, or like Bassus does, where he actually runs and charges at you, and it would have made the fight even more enjoyable. But I just don't see how a random brute who we don't actually know anything about can have more of a challenge to fight than the main big bad villain that we lead up to and build as a character throughout the entire game, and they just get destroyed like any other boss that we've fought in this entire game. So, now lastly, the open world. Well, what can I say about it? Well, I can say this: why the hell has Halo Infinite done what no other Halo game has done before on this scale? Because it works so well. And I tell you what, I have been dreaming for the longest time of an open world Halo game, and now 343 have finally done it, and it works really, really well. It actually concerns me a little bit, because if 343 go back to doing linear games after Halo Infinite, I'm not convinced I'll enjoy it as much as I did Infinite, because it's missing the core feature that takes Halo to the next level. So why do I love the open world though so much? Well, first of all, I'm a sucker for an open world sci-fi game, or just even an open world games in general. I love the freedom of going out and doing your own thing and killing something, or take this or take that, and do everything else other than the main missions first, or do half the missions, go out exploring, come back to do it, or however many different variations you want to do the missions and the side missions. Not only that, but there is a freedom on how you take on structures, from blasting through the front door or use a Scorpion tank, or flying overhead and sending down an airstrike and a Wasp, or even grappling up the sidewall for a surprise attack, which then gives you the high ground. The freedom in this game just adds to the replayability of it, and it means that I'm not forced to play just the main missions in one specific way. A couple things I would say is you get to a point in this game where it is back-to-back campaign missions without any escape into the open world. Now that's a pain for me because I was recording a series, but also it's another pain because you don't get many, if any, Spartan cores in the linear missions. And you come across a lot of bosses between you get between a lot of bosses in between, and if you need to upgrade your Spartan abilities in between to help you take on the bosses, you have to complete like 3 or 4 missions before you're even given the opportunity to do so. One other thing I will say though is that while the open world is big and vast, it's certainly not as big as I thought it was going to be. Like, a game we've been waiting for 6 years, I was expecting more of a GTA 5 style map, or size map should I say. Now, there are reports going around, like I mentioned beforehand, that 343 had serious development troubles with Halo Infinite due to complications with the slipspace engine, as well as other things, and it meant they had to cut a lot of content. Now, I'm thinking of doing a video covering this, however I'm reluctant to because it is only speculation, nothing's confirmed yet. But if I want to, then I will. If I don't, then I don't. So anyway, that is what I have time for in this this review here. Again, overall, I really enjoyed this game. It's so much fun, and I'm even, like, my legendary playthrough I did afterwards, after I finished doing my YouTube recording, once all that had been up on YouTube. And I just had so much fun even on Legendary, and I remember playing Halo 3 and Halo 2's Legendary and just getting so frustrated with it because it's so difficult. But I've then played Halo Infinite's Legendary, and it's so fun. I kind of want to give Lasso a go, actually, just for the sake of experiencing it and seeing what it's like. But I tell you what though, while I really enjoyed this game, there's certain parts that really just drag me down, like the size of the map, for example. Like, I love the open world aspect, and I think it's a really good, like I said, I have so much fun in it, but I can, within like a 3-hour playthrough, I feel like I've basically wiped out all the banished in half of the map, you know, and the map is split into 2 sections, one with all the objectives and the other side where the House of Reckoning that is, which you can't actually do anything on anyway. And yes, you can fly over to that area of the map, but I just feel like, you know, I had to fly about in there in a wasp that I got for one of my FOBs, and I just don't see the point, because all it is just fighting things. There's no actual structures that you can attack, you know, it's literally just fighting banished that are wandering around in small squads. Whereas on the main side of the map, with all the objectives and that in there, you do get, yes, it is still squads wandering about, but let's say Ransom Keep, for example. Yes, it is still squads roaming around in there, but it's in a built-up environment, so you can still use tactics a little bit. And something else that I really just don't like is the replayability missions-wise in this game. Now, one thing I really hope that 343 do, now they're already adding campaign playability in this game, so you can replay campaign missions, which I think is really good, by the way. But something that I hope they put in is replayable side missions, because the side missions, remarkably, yes, they do get a little bit repetitive, but things like Ransom Keep or I think it's the Forge of Teach or something, with the big like camps and bases that the banished occupy, they're so fun to take out. You know, I haven't done anything like that on Legendary yet, because I just wanted to get the achievement for completing the campaign on Legendary. And in fairness, after that Harbinger fight with that big chieftain with the gravity hammer, I kind of just had, right, I've had enough of Legendary for a while, I'm going to leave it at that. But I really want to see replayability of side missions as well, especially the big ones where you take out the camps, because they are so fun. You know, maybe not the rescuing the Marines, even though if that means that we're going to get replayability side missions, I just take it, but leave it and not use it. But taking on these banished camps again, like 2 or 3 times, like repetitively with Marines, and doing it in different ways. You know, one time you go and take out with a Scorpion, and another time you go with a bunch of Marines. The next time you do stealth wise with a sniper rifle. You know, that's the one thing that that annoys me about this game, is that, you know, you go and attack a base of the banished with a Scorpion tank, and then you think, oh, I kind of wanted to do that with a grappler and see how I'll do it differently, but you can't, because you can't replay it, and that's annoying. And for a game that's advertised on giving the player choice of how to do things, I wish they would let us do it in different ways, because otherwise you're going to have to get, like, because there's no mission replayability, you're going to have to, every single time you want to take on that part of the base differently, you're going to have to make a new game. But by making a new game, you've got to go through the whole rigmarole of the linear missions before you go and get to that point again. And to replay one base that you want to take on differently, you could probably have to go through the entire half of the game. Like, no, that's not good. That isn't good at all. So there are certain things, and while I do really enjoy this game and the core mechanics, there are details in there that really don't float my boat, and that sort of deflate it a little, but not enough to make me hate the game and not play it, because like I said, I've got like 180 hours in this game so far. And, you know, but the replayability as far as the campaign's concerned, like just for about half an hour before I did this video, just to get a bit of a feel on what I was talking about, I was just wandering around killing banished, and it's like, I've only been doing it for about 15 minutes, and I was like, I'm bored. There's nothing in, like, it seems, once you got rid of the main banished forces, it seems so lifeless. What I want is, you load up an FOB, and when you load up into a game, and you get the weapon turned around and say to you, oh, just so you know, Chief, I've had reports saying that the Forge of Teach has been retaken by the banished. You need to go take it back. You know, and it doesn't impede on your progress at all, if you're actually 100% game saves. It's just events within the world that keep you invested and keep you interested. You know, it doesn't even have to be that, you know, you catch the banished actually in the process of retaking their base back. It's literally just spawning enemies that pings you and says, oh, look, this has actually happened. You know, and it just, the world just doesn't seem very alive once you complete the main missions. You know, once you've done that, you know, you can tell the banished have, right, this force control over the ring. But beyond the actual end of the game, and what, you know, my first playthrough that I did my YouTube series on, I'm at 100% at the moment. And no, so I was 98% because I need one more skull. But once you've done that, it's boring. You know, there's nothing else in the game that you can find, that you can do and you can find. But anyway, I'm rambling on a bit too much. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy, don't forget to smash the like button and hit the subscribe button for more awesome gaming content. I shall see you all later. Bye.